Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Kizer Knives Tangram Amarillo, or I guess Tangram Knives by Kizer, whatever they want to call it. But anyways, it's the Amarillo, I guess, depending how you want to pronounce it. But anyways, first off, a little bit of full disclosure. This was provided to me directly from Kizer Knives as a part of a shipment, so they sent a couple of these little Tangram guys along, so I got a chance to check these little guys out. I told them, as I always have, I'm going to talk about the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly. And they still sent it, so there you go. But thank you, Kizer, and just so you guys know, that's what's going on here. Next thing, Tangram. What is Tangram? Well, Tangram is a sub-brand of Kizer Knives. This is sort of their budget sub-brand. They're really determined to hit the budget price points, and they're selling almost, I think, actually exclusively through Amazon. This has its ups and downs. I like companies who support knife distributors because knife distributors support the knife community, but at the same time, Amazon has a layer of accessibility through people throughout the community that, a lot of the areas might not. So, whatever, double-edged sword is what it is. Next thing, let's do a size comparison here. First off, as always, Spyderco Delica. You can see that this particular little knife is not very large. Handle-wise, it's coming in under the Delica. Blade length, in terms of sharpened edge, it's slightly longer, but in terms of overall edge, slightly shorter. And actually, let's just go ahead and do a measurement real quick. Well, I've got my fancy calipers handy. And it looks like blade length-wise, we are coming in at like 2.75-ish inches, which is fine, good to go. So there you go. Next thing, of course, Ontario Rat number 2, which is kind of the most similar size comparison on this guy, although, again, it's a little smaller in the handle, and your Rat number 1, so there you go. And then anything else worth comparing to? Yeah, actually, let's compare this to another one of the Tangram knives. This is the Vector by Tangram, and then right here is the Santa Fe. So anyways, next thing, this is going to be a quick review, and the reason for that is this is a relatively straightforward knife, so I don't feel the need to belabor it. So anyways, let's go ahead and jump into the good and the not so good about this little guy right here. First off, on the good side, the size on this is very nice. With this very small, with this very deep carry clip here, and the small size, the relative thinness of the knife, this really disappears in the pocket. I mean, it's a nice little piece, and that 2.75-inch range is legal for a lot of folks. I like small knives, and this is a nice one, so that's good. Next thing, I do like the logo and the writing here. Pardon the gunk on the blade. I've been testing the crap out of this steel here, so that's good. But I like the logo very much. I think it works well. Next thing, the clip on this guy, although it has its downsides, is reasonably nice. It's a nice deep carry clip, which is good. And it's got plenty of spring to it. No real argument there. And it is reversible, by the way. So you can swap this guy around and do a left or right side carry. So that's good. Next thing, the blade on this guy absolutely does cut. Thickness-wise, it's not actually too bad. We're right in the same vicinity of the Spyderco Delica here. And it is full flat ground, and it gets down to a relatively thin edge down there. And that's great. And the tip on this guy is actually super thin. Really thin, which I appreciate very, very much. Basically, this is a knife that cuts things, and I always do appreciate that. And I like that they're doing that on their budget line, frankly, more than they're doing that on their full production line. And so that's great. Next thing, the action on this guy. I mean, you're seeing me flipping this guy back and forth all the time, and that's because the action is fun. This is a great little action here. It deploys 100% reliably, and on this particular guy, running on the bearings, it's smooth, it's beautiful. This is a nice action. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that in terms of action, this is probably the best value out there right now. And that's because this comes in, the final good thing is that this comes in at $30 in the U.S. here. Look, that's a really impressive price, because that puts it in the same vicinity as the Ontario Rat number 2 here. It puts it in the same vicinity as a lot of your nice budget choices out there in the world, and so I like that. And the fact that you're getting a really nice unassisted action that is frankly better than, for instance, the Steel Wheel 3-inch cut jack, which is right over here, which is a little bit less, I mean, it deploys reliably too, but it feels less smooth than this guy. That's impressive to me. And so the price point on this guy is really solid, especially given that you are getting this very, very nice unassisted action. So that, to me, is what's good here. Is the $30 price tag is excellent. It's got great action. It's got a blade that actually cuts things, a very nice reversible deep carry clip, and a nice logo. And the size on this guy absolutely will appeal to me, maybe not to you. On the bad side, first off, I can't say I'm loving the clip point on this guy. I mean, it's okay, but it just doesn't feel like it flows with the rest of the knife. I mean, they're welcome to do whatever they please. please, and this is more of an aesthetic thing than anything, but it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't quite work for me. But whatever, not a big deal. Next thing, the clip on this guy, unfortunately throughout the Tangram lineup, they're using these deep carry clips, but you can see here that they've got the screws up inside the deep carry clip. There's just barely enough room in there that you can get your pocket over there, but this is why I'm a big fan of when you use a deep carry clip, people who will kind of sink the fasteners, use like a flat top fastener or something like that, so that the fabric of your pocket can actually get all the way up in there. It's a little detail, but it's a detail that makes a deep carry clip markedly better when it is done properly. So, there you go. Next thing, the clip is, unfortunately, this G10 is pretty roughly textured. And the clip is right on top of it. And that means that this is going to eat your pants a little bit. It's not as bad as some, and there are definitely some worse G10s out there in the world. I would probably put this right in line with the G10 that you see on like the Spyderco PM2, if not maybe a little bit rougher. Size comparison. But, yeah, anyways, that just means that it's a little harder to get into and out of the pants than necessarily needs to be. Then next thing, the steel on this guy. This is using a Japan Akudo steel, a 440 Akudo, something along those lines. Look, this is a steel that is fine, I guess. It's not one I'd used prior to this batch of Tangrams here, but I did put a fair amount of use to it. And frankly, I concentrated on doing that. I broke down a lot of boxes, and not just like breaking down, but like filleting a bunch of cardboard and things like that. And you know what? It takes a great edge, but it doesn't hold it super, super well. But the thing is, it is very easy to resharpen. It feels like, practically speaking, and of course, every steel guy in the comments is going to be ripping at me because I'm saying something about steel. But the thing is, for me, this feels like it's someplace between VG10 and AUS8 in terms of staying power and in terms of just, I don't know, edge durability, for the lack of a better term. And so, to me, it's a fine steel. It's good to go. It'll work for you. And it sharpens up nicely. It strops well. So it's not bad, but it's also not super impressive either. Next thing on this guy, the sharpening choil is present, but not quite enough. They needed to take this just maybe a millimeter further out. You can see there's a little bit of a smile at the bottom, and over time, that'll lead to a little bit of a recurve. And in fact, you can see a little bit of that from the initial sharpening. Not a big deal, but it's a deal. And then finally, unfortunately, and the biggest issue with this guy is the ergonomics on it. Look, I have relatively small hands. I get about a 3-finger grip on this, but the unfortunate part is that the clip is just ergonomically not well positioned. Deep carry clips are great, but in situations like this, they need to fit well in the hand, and unfortunately this doesn't. You can see just, if I grab this knife and then bear down, you'll see implanted in my hand, here we've got, you know, the outline of the clip. This is the back side of the clip. The clip is just a gigantic hot spot on this knife. And given that, unfortunately, you know, most of my grip is coming from these two areas here, and you also get a little bit of a hot spot off this, ergonomically speaking, this just doesn't work for me. I mean, it's fine. It stays in the hand okay, but it's just not comfortable to cut with. And so, to me, that is the worst part about this knife, bar none, is just the ergonomics just don't work. And so that's the bad overall, is that the ergos are bad. They miss the sharpening choil. This steel is fine. And maybe I'm being too harsh on it. It's a budget knife. It's $30. But, you know, it's nothing, if you look at this, it's like, oh, no budget steel, is it going to be great? No, it's a budget steel. There you go. Case closed. The clip is on a roughly textured area. The screws are definitely intruding into the clip zone, and I'm not loving the clip point so much on this guy. But there you go. Final conclusion-wise, you know, I feel like this knife is okay, I guess. You know, for $30 with a nice slicey blade and a great unassisted action, that's okay. It's not a bad knife by any stretch. And the action really is the thing that brings you to this. If this didn't have a great action, I would be really, really disappointed. But the thing is, even with this great action, and it is a very, very nice action, I don't know that it's a knife I send people to, because, you know, you get the missed choil here. The clip could use a little bit of love. The steel isn't, like, great enough to justify it. And the ergos is the big deal here. If the ergos on this were great, I'd be much more interested. But as it is, although the price is right here and the action is really impressive, and I really do hope that they continue to make these budget knives with these great actions here, I'm afraid I am not going to yellow my recommendation for this guy from the rooftops. Get it? Because Spanish, Amarillo, yellow? No? Nothing. All right. So anyways, not a bad knife, but also not one I'm going to send you to. Hope this has been interesting to you and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.